This podcast is brought to you by Oregon Freddie Mobile DJ.
Hello, my name is Freddie Ruiz Jr. and you are listening to Weddings Northwest. And today I'm here with
Stephanie Bob. I own Northwest Event Producers. It's a wedding and event production and coordinating company. On the wedding side, it's very vendor management, logistics, timeline procession, just making it the bride's best day ever. And then on the event side, it could be more logistical and like 30,000 foot view and managing permitting and setup time and teardown time and any sort of partnerships that would have to happen with city officials and that type of stuff. So even though coordination covers both of them, they are definitely different in terms of my work strategy for those kind of events.
Would you say that's the wedding coordinator versus the day of coordination, or is that wedding planning?
Oh, sorry. No, with regards to wedding planning and wedding coordination, day of, it's vastly different. When I get hired to do a full or partial coordination, it's usually recommendations, maybe going and touring the venue more than once, recommending catering, and then maybe doing a tasting with them, recommending their cake decor, meeting them at the rental company and walking through colors and schemes and what do you think and how do you like and that kind of stuff. So I will set up, I will tear down, I'll meet your vendors as they arrive. If something goes awry, then I am the first person that people come to. Unless it's something that I can't handle, then I will go to them personally.
What do all that cost? Couples trying to plan for an average cost of a coordinator, planner, day of. What am I paying for and how much is that going to cost me?
I think that it's a good question, but it's hard to answer because the Willamette Valley is not Portland. And so for me, I charge anywhere between $1,500 and $1,750 for day of, which will give you up to 10 hours the day of, plus the rehearsal, venue walkthrough, those type of things. But in Portland, you're $2,800 to $3,500 for day of coordination.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and it's just because they're able to charge that. But then you've got these people that charge $500. And if you break it down in terms of your work, like for me, it's an average of 10 hours for the day of a wedding. If you're charging only $500, then you're essentially being paid $50 an hour for the day of, but you aren't factoring in procession timeline, rehearsal, travel to and from, any of that kind of stuff. And I also do contract review as well. I have 25 years of experience, and there's not a lot of situations where I can't come up with a solution that will be behind the scenes and will affect the bride and groom in their best day ever.
Yeah. How do you step into picking a planner?
So the biggest thing, I think my advice would be that I don't want a bride to feel badly about their budget. If their budget is what their budget is, definitely don't. I get so angry when I see those Facebook pages where someone says, my budget's only $500 for a day of coordinator, and that poor bride gets blasted. It's rude.
That's the same thing with equals. Yeah. Only $5 ceremony separate, all of their stuff, and then it's just like you're never gonna get it. Best of luck. You're gonna get what you pay for. They're trying to get the thing that they want.
I've got a wedding planned in June, and it's at this really nice hotel in Portland, and they're requiring to have a wedding coordinator the day of. I had to send this hotel a copy of my insurance and my business verification before I would be approved.
Sure. I've had to do that a couple times, and I love it. I'm very proud, happy to do that. This is going to be a great wedding. Everyone's going to be happy. I am stoked to see what else they have planned when I know that all these precautions are being taken care of.
100%. So it's not because I'm talking to you. I promise you, Freddie, I'm just telling you. I can't stand it when someone does not have a DJ. And I have a wedding that's coming up, and they have a band. Which bands are great, don't get me wrong. I said, so who's going to be your MC? What? Who's going to make all the announcements for you? Is the band willing to do that? I don't know. I hadn't thought of that. I'm like, how is your music getting played as you're walking down the aisle? If the band is going to be for the reception, how are we doing the wedding? People don't realize that a DJ doesn't play music. They play music, yes, but they also walk alongside the coordinator about cake cutting and dinner time and releasing tables and having background music during guests arriving, playing the right music at the right time, turning it down if they don't want to do the whole song. There's so much more that goes along with it than just playing music. This is a specific example. I had a wedding a couple summers ago where they had a harpist that was going to play during the ceremony. And 17 minutes before the wedding was getting ready to start, I get a text message from the harpist, "I'm not coming." Bride had no idea that her harpist had just said, "Hey, I'm not coming." So I pulled out my Bose speaker, downloaded some harp music, went to her mom and asked the 2 songs that she wanted played, one during the procession and the other one during their candle lighting. It was the most stressful 32 minutes of my life. And had we had a DJ, that would have taken all of that pressure off of me. So 1000% think that a DJ needs to be at a wedding. When it comes to DIY, I think that there's major pros and cons, like as far right and as far left as far as pros and cons go, as you can imagine, because some brides are really good at it.
It is a time thing of logistics and creativity on your shoulders when you're supposed to be like having fun and relaxing.
A lot of the times when the bride makes those statements, "I'm just not having any fun. This is way more stress than I thought it was going to be. It was way more pressure than I thought it was going to be." It's because you're putting everything on you. Do you really need to sit around with a hot glue gun gluing those pearls to a vase? You can really keep it as simple or as elaborate as you need to for around the same price, if not cheaper, by the time you buy every little tiny thing that you need to DIY something.
Yeah, I think elegance and affordability can actually totally go hand in hand.
Yeah.
I think you can have simple, modern, elegant, less is more. I'm not paying for that. I don't need this extra stuff. I don't need to set that up. You know what? They can actually take those home. They can walk away with those things.
Yeah. One of the things that I tell my brides all the time is don't do favors. Don't have a gift for your guest.
Oh, right. Separate things that you have to package.
Yeah, no, it's people will spend so much money on little welcome boxes or bottle openers or engraved pens or magnets or whatever. They get left behind. They cost you an arm and a leg. It's just not worth it. You're spending $100 a head to feed them and have them have a dance party for the night. You do not need to give them a gift.
Yeah. I think perhaps if there was something they walk away with, I hear that the photo booth strips, just having a photo booth that is prints.
Yes.
Those are great takeaways.
Yeah. I really think that so much time and energy goes into making your guests feel warm and welcome when it's not about your guests. It's about you spending time with your guests. It's not about giving them a gift.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Let's see here. Should you have a wedding cake or dessert alternatives?
Cupcakes is a great alternative. Just having a sweets table where it's like chocolate dipped pretzels and cookies and cupcakes and cake pops and all that kind of stuff is significantly cheaper than having a cake large enough to feed everyone. Or I just did a wedding in December where they bought a little tiny cake for them to cut. And then behind the scenes, the banquet staff cut up white Costco cakes and put it out on the table, and no one was the wiser. But I've seen so many different things. I've seen pie. I did a wedding in October and it was all fall themed, and she went to Willamette Pie Company and got 6 or 7 different kinds of pies, and we cut up pies and squirted some whipped cream on the top, and they fed pie to one another. I've seen a popcorn bar where they feed each other popcorn. I've seen donuts where they feed each other donuts. So I think that if you really enjoy something rather than having a cake because it's tradition and everyone has a cake, you should do what you really like. If you want, I had an ice cream tractor come to a wedding. I'm not even kidding you. It's this red tractor, and they make homemade ice cream right then and there. And so then they had this whole table full of toppings. And the bride and groom had ice cream cones and fed each other ice cream cones, and that was their picture for their photographer. It was absolutely adorable.
Oh my God.
Adorable.
Maybe like grab some of the brisket, grab some of the caramel.
Exactly.
Like,
Yeah, like it just, you don't have to have cake is my point. I know I could go down a rabbit hole of all the things I've done, but you don't have to have cake. And they melt too, to put them in the sun. I had wedding cakes that started to fall over because they were not in the sun. And then as the sun trajectory changes, then they got into the sun and started melting. Oh yeah, I've seen it 100 times.
That's such a hassle. Yeah. So desserts, we'll see what happens in the future with desserts, but it's exciting to see things change.
I do want to touch base about weddings without alcohol because I've done 3 different weddings this season, or last season, 2024, that had no alcohol. I did do a wedding at a church and the reception was in the church and there was no alcohol. So we had somebody serving up mocktails. So it's just a fancy way of drinking lemonade, but it was cool because I put the basil in the shaker, put the lemonade in over some ice, shook it, and then put it into a really fancy glass. I can tell you that a couple gallons of lemonade from Costco with some hibiscus juice and basil is probably around $100, where I'm buying alcohol for a beer or wine, which I always suggest Costco, by the way. But buying beer and wine, it could be $100 to $150 a case of wine and at least $30 to $40 a case for the beer. It's a way cost savings, and it can be done really cool. There's some really cool recipes out there. You can just type it into TikTok or Instagram and all these recipes come up, and especially holiday themed, purple ones for Halloween and cranberry ones for Christmas. So I think that if you're budget conscious and you're not huge drinkers and your reception is going to be, so you still want some sort of like fancy twist to, I think mocktails are 100% the way to go.
I absolutely agree. I think mocktails are great. They're creative. You can put creative twists. You can put creative names on them. You can decorate them. You can personalize these drinks. You don't have to supply for the night. If you're thinking on a budget, maybe you have a shorter timeline for your reception and you have an after party and everybody goes to the bar and then drinks over there with their liability and their fully stocked bar and their draft beers. But at my reception ceremony, we had some fancy drinks and all the kids got to have the fancy drinks like the adult.
Exactly.
And then we took on to the party, to like the actual party where we didn't have to see family, we didn't have to dress down or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, the kids love that they can have the fancy drinks too. There's this one that we have used all through Christmas, and it's just apple juice, apple cider with cinnamon sticks, apples, and oranges. And the kids loved they could go over and get this fancy drink and plus the cost is really so much better. There's several venues in 2024 moving forward are not going to allow hard alcohol. And it's mainly because of the inexperienced bartenders who have become problematic with overserving or leaving a mess behind because they're not taking care of the venue, those type of things. And it's really going to become a problem with these signature drinks, which is where this whole new mocktail thing comes in, because you can make signature drinks with beer, hard cider, White Claw, wine, and mix those with juices or whatever with a little sprig of something and still make it super fancy and not costing you an arm and a leg. You need a bartender that can handle mixing, or you need to have something pre-mixed. We did a blackberry lemonade drink with blackberry crown, and I pre-mixed that. So all we had to do is shake it over ice, put it into a glass, and then drop a blackberry into it.
There you go.
The other thing is, logistically, placing your bar in certain locations isn't great. Like, you don't want your bar by your food. Sometimes people are all linear. Like, you got your cake, then you got your bar, then you got your buffet. Well, the problem is everybody's going to that side of the room at the same time, and it gets super crowded. You want to keep your guests moving around. So logistically, I think that people should pay more attention to what you want to serve. Do you need to spend $40 a bottle for a certain brand of rosé, or can you go and get the Kirkland rosé, which is just as good, in my opinion, for $6.99 a bottle?
Yeah, I suppose you're right. There are a lot of types of experiences during the whole day for a wedding for you and your guests. There's a ceremony experience, there's a cocktail experience. How much do you want to spend on that kind of experience? I think the money's worth it for the speed, efficiency, and the entertainment. Like, these are fun, happy people that know that they should be dressed appropriately and ready to go and do a wedding. Not like on the other side where I got my license, I got my backwards hat and my jeans here for your special day. So as a coordinator, you're talking to vendors, venues, DJs, bartenders, and you're relaying information to the couple. With all that information going back and forth, how often are you looking at contracts and making sure all the contracts are good? What are some red flags in contracts? How's that whole thing going down?
It's part of the service I offer for partial and full coordination. Generally speaking, I ask them to send me a copy of the contract just so that I have it in case I get questioned about something. But I have seen like completely unrealistic expectations at venues where you can't bring in any beverages at all, not even a bottle of water. You have to purchase that from them. So your bride shows up with their bridal party and she's got snacks and she's got water bottles and maybe some sparkling non-alcoholic beverage or even alcoholic beverage. And the venue coordinator is there with a hard, who goes there? Because God forbid you brought in a water bottle. I think I would catch something along those lines easier than a bride who just has never looked at a contract like that before. Even catering contracts, maybe the caterer's charging $30 a head for chicken and pork buffet. But then you read down in the contract and it's $1.50 per person for them to bring paper plates. And then it's $3 a person for them to bring plastic plates. And then and all this stuff is added in there. And so you went from $30 a person in your mind to a $10,000 catering bill. And they're like, what in the heck? Like, how did this happen? And it's because they didn't read the fine print. Or it'll say specifically, because it's a buffet, that staff will set up the buffet, tear down the buffet, box up all the extra food, but they won't bus.
Oh.
It's in the contract. I'm not going to bus. Well, if I see that, then I'm like, hey, Sally, by the way, your caterer is not going to bus tables. What's your plan for that?
As a coordinator, you've seen so many contracts. You've seen DJ contracts, florist contracts, venue contracts, officiant agreements, whatever you want to call them. If you haven't ever dealt with that on a weekly, monthly, daily basis, perhaps you should consider a coordinator because they know how to look for the small things.
The biggest thing, I think, when planning your special day is that it shouldn't be stressful. I wish that people would just settle in a little bit and enjoy themselves more. And with the pizza truck can't park on the west side of the venue and they have to park on the east side of the venue, then so be it. Like, it's just not a big deal. And make it more about having your happy day and more about being present. Living in Oregon and choosing an indoor and outdoor venue and pros and cons to doing that. My best advice for that is that you go with the flow. I had a wedding the first weekend in October and she was hell-bent on getting married outside and having her reception inside. And we watched the weather and we were texting back and forth and at rehearsal on Friday. And I'm like, babe, it's not happening. It's not going to be fun for you. It's not going to be fun for your guests. And you let me just fix this. So I completely rearranged her reception inside to give her an aisle. I makeshifted an arch. I worked with the florist to get the flowers that were supposed to be on the gazebo on the arch. I had some drapery left over from another part of the wedding that we were doing. And it turned out absolutely stunning and gorgeous. But I also had a wedding at Silver Creek Falls this summer. The weather spiked to 98. Do you really want to put your guests outside in that heat for 20 minutes? She wouldn't budge. And her guests were miserable.
You can do that. You just got to plan for it. Have
Exactly.
umbrellas for grandma and grandpa. Have water. They have a lot of water. Talk to your coordinator and have covered area. Always have covered area.
Always. Yeah. We had a wedding this summer in July where it was really gusty wind, but it was that warm
Ooh,
wind, not a cool breeze, but like that warm
yeah.
wind. Napkins and crap were flying everywhere. Like we couldn't keep anything nailed down.
Let's see here. What are some unique wedding themes that you've come across these days?
I think that you can lean into your passion and your love without it being gaudy. And I think a coordinator, especially myself, can help. One of my brides is an avid rider. She barrel races and does the whole circuit and stuff. And she really wanted her wedding to have this cowboy feel to it without being like Dolly Parton with the big hat and the fringe underneath your arm. And so we found a way for her girls are going to wear cream colored boots with tan stitching, and the guys are going to wear pressed, starched Stetsons with cowboy boots, but they're going to wear black jackets, white shirts, and a bolo tie. So we really just kind of went back and forth to make it feel that rodeo feel, but not cheesy cowboy.
Right, these aren't costumes. These are timeless
Right.
themes.
Exactly. I did a Alice in Wonderland themed one that was all like lilac, purple, and white, but then every place setting at the table had an actual mismatched vintage teacup and saucer. And then we tied the napkins into a bow and laid it across a charger. And in the middle of the table was a teapot, but the teapot had the floral arrangement in it, with the florist did. Did it look like Alice in Wonderland? No. Was it Alice in Wonderland? 100% if you looked closely enough. And we used real champagne and wine glasses at the bar, and every single one of them had a wine charm, which was for the guests to keep. Here, I just told you not to do favors, but it was kind of cute. And each one of the charms was a rabbit or a hat or a clock or whatever. And it was really cute, and you really could tell, or you could not see it and it still be right in front of your face.
Let's see here. Yeah. Well, there's a bunch of stuff to do even before the wedding, especially in rehearsal. I feel like there's a lot of things you can accomplish in a rehearsal. Now, how do you do a rehearsal, I guess?
So sometimes people think I've been to a ton of weddings, so I know, or I've been in a wedding before, so I know. And I don't discard that at all. But the thing is that every processional is unique. Every situation is unique. And just walking through it is so helpful for the next day. I always ask, who's walking your mom down the aisle for a bride? And she's like, oh, I didn't think about that. Can't my dad do it? I'm like, no, your dad's walking you down the aisle. So who's going to walk your mom down the aisle? Is it going to be your brother or her brother or, grandpa or whatever? And it really opens up this conversation between myself and my bride and groom of being mindful and thoughtful of the people that are attending the wedding and recognizing those that you want to be recognized. And I'm very specific about who walks with who and where they stand and where they sit. I try to not allow alcohol at rehearsal until after I'm done. I'm not a mean person, but you need to be paying attention, be respectful.
I mean, and if you can't do it in rehearsal, this is what's going to happen day of. We're in a timeline.
Exactly.
People need to eat. People got to go. Songs have to be done. And we know you're funny, huh? Snap, get in line. Come on, focus up.
God forbid somebody was dating, they're no longer dating, but they're still the best friend of the bride and the groom. And we have to deal with that dynamic too. And so I just try really hard to know all of that stuff the day before. So I know what I'm walking into day of. I know who's walking with who, when to line them up. One of the things that drives me bonkers is this feeling that you should have everyone that's coming to the wedding be at the rehearsal. And that's just not the case. I don't think that grandparents need to come to rehearsal. They can figure out how to walk down the aisle. I'll tell them when to go. I'll cue them, that kind of thing. I don't think that your sister-in-law needs to bring all 10 of her children to rehearsal because it just gets chaotic. Your officiant must be there. Your bridal party must be there. I think it's super important for the parents to be there. And especially if one of the parents is hosting the rehearsal dinner, they need to be there or be able to get to wherever that rehearsal dinner is going to be at. Your DJ is helpful to be there. It's really helpful, but sometimes it's not necessarily in the contract and we don't need the music. It's nice to have it, but I can do the rehearsal without that. I'm so novice when it comes to TikTok. I'm really trying, so please don't, no judgment there, please. I have a website. It's nweventproducers.com. And there's a, contact me button, obviously, on every page of that. It tells you a little bit more about me and my background, my husband's background, and our mobile bar service. I also have an Instagram page. I'm very active on that, and it's NW Event Pro. And I also have a Facebook, and it's also Northwest Event Producers or NW Event Producers.